Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Macarthur, this month's bonus episode with Coleman Greig Lawyers. Today, we've ditched Andrew Driver and we've got a whole new personality on board. Lisa Barca, Senior Associate and Acting Team Leader, Estate Planning. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
It's nice. We've had Andrew a couple of times on, and it'll be nice to get a subject to move away from property law for 1 month. And today's subject, I believe, we're going to talk about what happens to your digital assets when you die.
Correct. That's right. So a lot of people have estate planning, Mark, but not many have actually turned their mind to what happens to their digital assets. So today I'll be going through, some of the issues that we've faced in estates.
Yeah, so I've never thought of it. Digital assets, they're just there. So how do you protect those if you need to? Do you need to protect them? So take us through it.
About 2 years ago, I looked into the area of digital assets because more and more clients were coming to me and saying, okay, what happens to my email account? A lot of invested into cryptocurrency and assets that were never considered before. And so it was like, okay, so when I pass away, what happens to my crypto? And I started looking into this and I realized that the law actually has not kept up with digital assets. And so when we do die or lose capacity, it's very unclear as to what happens to our digital assets. So when I first delved into this, we had two generations. We had the Generation X's who freaked out and thought, yeah, I don't want to think about this. And they kind of ran away and thought, this is all too difficult. But then I had the Gen Ys who said to me, well, who cares? Who cares what happens to my Facebook or my Instagram when I passed away? And so the first thing I had to do was actually explain to people why it's important. So there was a graphic designer named Beeple who sold a digital artwork for an amazing $70 million. So this is not a tangible asset. It's completely digital, and it sold in March this year for $70 million. So when we talk about do digital assets have any value? Well, yes, they do. There are things out there now that are just held electronically, which are worth big, big money. We've also got this whole blogger and influencer thing that has taken over the world at the moment. And these people all have assets digitally. So if we look at the fitness influencer, Kayla, she makes nearly $150,000 per Instagram post. And her wealth is held primarily in ebooks and fitness videos, which are all held electronically. So when she dies, we need to be able to figure out, okay, how does that wealth go from one generation to another? Do you have any digital assets, Mark? I should ask. Do you have crypto or anything?
No, I don't have crypto. And I know with crypto, you can do that in two different ways, right? You can either have an exchange account, which is probably a bit more like normal trading, where you would have a partner that holds all of those details. But I think a lot of people just do them through private wallets. So unless you've got the username and passwords, well, it's not retrievable, right?
That's right. And so we've got... Yeah,
no, I don't. To answer your question, no, I don't have crypto. I don't understand it. It's non-tangible. I can't see why it's worth anything at all.
Yeah, but a lot of people have invested a lot of money in crypto. So when they die, the executors want to be able to actually retrieve that asset and gain and sell it or have the benefit of it. But what's happening at the moment is that they can't, because they don't know the passcode. It's somewhere in the cloud. And it's actually a crime to actually go into a computer and retrieve someone's data if you don't have the password.
Wow.
So we've got the Crimes Act that says if you go into a computer, even if you know the password, you're actually breaking into it and it's a crime. And then you've also got another act which says, as an executor, you need to do everything you possibly can to gather a deceased person's assets. So at the moment in New South Wales, we've got law that's conflicting.
So how do we protect against that?
Well, you need to see a lawyer. And a lawyer at the moment, the government has put a framework in place which dictates what happens to a person's digital assets. Now, it's not law yet, it's a framework. No other state in Australia has actually gone to this length. New South Wales is the first state in Australia which has this framework legislation. In the meantime, we are in limbo. So you'll have to see a lawyer, where a lawyer will go through things that you can do to protect that. Things that I get clients to do is I get them to write their secret question and passwords and things like that in an envelope we seal it. It goes with the will. There are websites where you can put all that data in, but of course, I think, do I really want to put all that important data into a website that don't know where it's going? So I usually advise against that. But yeah, so it's putting things in the will to say, okay, Mark's my executor, but Mark is also the person that I want to be able to access my email, access my social media accounts. And then it's making those holders, so those service providers, accountable for that. But it needs to be explicitly written, or else it's quite ambiguous.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I was supposed doing a separate letter with that. The only problem with that is that if you do that and seal in an envelope and give it to your solicitor to put with your will, what happens when you get to the point where you change your password and then you've forgotten to renew all of that?
Well, this is why I get clients to write secret questions and answers, because passwords change all the time, Mark.
Yeah.
So we can't, hopefully by the time you do a will and you pass away, it'll be decades. But we usually get them to write the secret question and the password.
Yeah.
That usually helps. Or tell someone else your password. So I don't know, Mark, have you told anybody any of your passwords?
No.
Yeah.
I don't. So with this framework that they're working on, is that going to then make digital assets an inheritable asset?
Correct.
Yeah, so do it that way, except for, because I know places like with all of our Apple stuff, like we're owned by Apple in this house, right? So with all of our Apple stuff, and they're all unique to a person, I don't believe that Apple or Amazon allow those assets to be passed on.
And that's the problem. So we've got service providers that each have different rules in relation to death or incapacity. And there's litigation popping up around the globe about that, because what's happening is, especially Yahoo is a perfect example. Parents had a son that was involved in a war. He had passed away, and there was important information about whether it was suicide or whether it was actually during war service that he passed away, and that was all stored on his email. But what Yahoo did when they were notified is they actually shut everything down. So all important communications and photos were lost. But what this framework that New South Wales is planning to do and put in place is that it actually bounds Facebook, Yahoo, LinkedIn, all these service providers to the law that's in New South Wales, which is quite remarkable, because they haven't got a choice really. They're bound by what. That's right.
Yeah, that's great idea. So in the meantime, while they're working on this framework, the important thing is for them to contact yourself and your team. How do they do that?
So you can contact us on the website. So via email, all our details come up on Coleman Greig Lawyers. We just do wills and estates. So I just do wills and estates, and members of my team just do wills and estates. So we're all over the little quirks, and we love looking into them. And it's not just wills, it's also powers of attorney as well. So if we lose our marbles and we need someone to be able to take over, we need to have in our powers of attorney. Okay, I authorize Mark to be able to, access my email. We've found in the past that I had a client who unfortunately committed suicide, and all his important stuff was on his laptop, and his wife had no idea what his passwords were. So, if he had those specific provisions in his will, then she would have been able to access it, but she couldn't. So it is becoming more important.
Yeah, 100%. And you've given me some things to think about too, because I do use like a keeper program for all my passwords and that sort of stuff, because we've just got too many in our life that we've just got to try and remember, and numbers and codes and that sort of thing. So there's a couple of key things that are important there that I'll take away in action. I encourage everybody else to do the same. Because it's funny, I go to people's homes quite often, talk to partners and that sort of stuff, and it's funny how there's always one person in the household that manages everything to do with bank accounts and insurances and life assurance and all that sort of stuff, and the other one's got absolutely no idea. They just say, oh no, she does it or he does it. So but being able to access that, and certainly the online bank accounts and that sort of thing, the cryptos, if you've got them, so there's some good tips and advice there. Coleman Greig, fantastic organisation. I thank you, Lisa, for jumping on today and giving us that insight into something that we probably, most of us, have never really thought about.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if the survey conducted said that 93% of people did not have anything about their digital assets in their will. So it's such a big number when you think about most people in the world do have a digital asset. So it is definitely something to think about.
Absolutely. Well, have a great month. We'll see Coleman and Greig again about this time next month. It'll be interesting to see who we get on. If we've got to put up with Andrew Grimer, then we'll do that. But you're more than welcome to jump back on at any time, Lisa.
I will. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.